Welcome. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I'm Christine Morgan of Worth and Wisdom, and I'm really glad to have you join me. We're going to have a short class today on a topic that has been kind of on my mind a lot lately, and I think on the minds of other people too. So today we are going to talk a little bit about how to stop saying yes when we really mean no. So as we kind of gather together, in fact, I probably cut myself off at the beginning because I got excited and started talking too quickly. But I'm waiting for a couple of people to join in. We've got a couple. We have a small group today, but that's fun. So I am just going to kind of give it a minute or two. But in the meantime, I have a question for you. And I was going to try it as a poll. So let's see if this feature works. All right, so I want to ask you, I'm going to make the results public so you guys can see it. See how we all vote. So to get started on our topic of how to stop saying yes when we mean no. So in fact, how to start saying no a little more often. I want to know how is it that you know when you are saying yes? Like, how do you know? So is it when a fake smile crosses your face? Like you start out, oh, sure, I'll do that, no problem. Or does your gut rumble? And let you know, because we all know deep down inside, even if we can't put words to it, we know when we want to say no. For me, sometimes it's when panic hits my throat and I can't think of the right words. Or another option is when you think about it later. So like maybe you don't even haven't even, you're just in the moment, you just kind of, oh, okay, yeah. And then later you think, why did I say yes to that? I didn't mean to say yes to that. How do I get out of it now? So that's the kind of thing I think we all have some different answers. I'm gonna give it another minute because sometimes my the video is faster than the poll. So I see some answers coming in. But it's funny how when we're saying yes, there can be things in our body that tell us this isn't this isn't what I want to do, and yet we do it anyway. We kind of override that feeling of our own gut. And so I think that's a big important piece to what we're doing. So, and there's different areas. So let's talk a little bit. Let's see. Okay, I'll go ahead and end the poll. It looks like everybody voted the same way. Can you guys see it? I hope so. So we all know in our guts. I think if I voted, it would have been when panic hits my throat. But we all know in our own guts when we start to not be genuine, not be authentic. And that's the key to this, right? When we say yes, when we really mean no, we are not being true to who we are or our own needs. And so that is why we're all here today. So congratulations, we're all in the same boat. We are all here to be more authentic. That's our goal. Otherwise, we wouldn't care about this. We would just keep going along, doing what we do, being resentful, because that's what happens. So there's different areas where we find difficulty in saying no. And it can be in our home with our family. It could be at work with colleagues or with a boss. So I'm kind of hoping you have a little piece of paper there near you. And I have to drink while I talk. Just water though, don't worry. I won't fall over by the end of the webinar. Okay, but where for you is it hardest to say no? Is it at home with your family? Is it maybe to the boss at work? Or maybe it's when you go out with your friends and you're not really sure about their acceptance, because I think that's a big piece of what it comes down to. And that's one of the things I was thinking about with this. Why is it that we struggle? You know, we can struggle with family because we don't want to disappoint them. And maybe in the chat, you guys could share with me, why is it, do you think you struggle with saying no? Is it that you don't want people to be mad at you? Is it that you really want to be helpful? Like that's something that feeds your soul. And so you, like it boosts you up to help other people. I'm that way. That's why I know that one. Sometimes we struggle because we want to be liked or accepted. And often people in our lives give us conditional acceptance. Those typically aren't the people that we want to hang around too much. Those that say you have to behave a certain way or you have to do this or that for me in order to be appreciated, that's not so cool. Sometimes we have trouble saying no just because we feel guilt. Maybe that one's a big one probably with family, especially with children. I could imagine if you feel like you haven't paid much attention to your kids lately because things have been crazy and they want something or they want your time. You know, you just spent 4 hours playing Barbies, but she needs a little bit more. It would be hard to say no because there'd be this guilt about our roles with other people and the responsibilities we have with those roles. So there's lots of different reasons. And I think probably what it comes down to, what it all boils down to is fear. We have fear of rejection, fear of disconnection, fear of isolation. Someone just shared that they've had some work struggles lately, and she just stood up for herself and quit that job because she was saying yes all day. That is phenomenal. That's the kind of thing we need to do. We need to take that time to pay attention to what our heart and our soul is telling us and let that override those fears that we get toward being accepted or toward being even being helpful, like a fear of not being helpful. If we use that to define who we are, like, oh yes, I'm smart and I'm helpful and doggone it, people like me, right? Well, if we use that to define who we are, then when people don't think we're helpful, then that can be really crushing to our self-worth and our self-esteem. So we have to get over this struggle. We have to learn to get over those fears and not let those fears be our decision makers. One of the other things I've found is that sometimes in unhealthy relationships, we can really struggle to say no. People can be quite manipulative, and I don't mean that always in a evil villain sort of way. People will do what they can to get their own way. That's just kind of the nature of people, and they have their own perceptions on how things should be, and they have their own rule books. And so those rule books define how and when things should happen, what a friend should look like, what a spouse should look like. We all have those rule books. And that's part of what we get stuck with when we're struggling to say no. But sometimes people can take it to another level. And we really need to look at that and start to look at those kind of relationships. And if we find that those relationships are really driven by a fear of losing love as opposed to joy that the love brings, if we start moving into that kind of that fear base in our relationship, then there's something going wrong there. And often that's when we're being manipulated. If you feel like you are never really sure where you stand in a relationship, or that you can't say how you feel without negative consequences, those types of relationships are typically not very safe for us. And so sometimes saying no isn't an option. And that's when we look to some outside resources, maybe some help on how to step away from those. That's almost abusive. So stepping away from those abusive type relationships, and that can even happen at work. So I'm really impressed with this gal that shared that she's just recently done that, stepped away at work, because we can get caught in that rut at work too, where we're always saying yes, when in our heart and our soul, it doesn't match with who we are. It isn't who we need to be. And so we have to be brave and find a way to step away. So there's so many different things that can cause these struggles with saying no. It's hard. I mean, that's why there's stuff out there all over the place about doing it, right? Because it's hard to do it. We don't want to disappoint people. We want to be nice. We want to be helpful. But, and there's other things too. Sometimes we want to impress other people. I think this can happen at work quite a bit. I want to look smart. I want to look promotable. You know, that's always a good one, right? And so I say yes to everything because it can maybe help me down the line. But in the meantime, I've burned myself out and I'm a big hot mess. So that's not really going to work, right? So we need to look at what those instant yes triggers are for us. And I kind of mentioned that in the promo for this webinar, our instant yes. So in your life, this is my question for you, and if you want to share in the chat, I would love it. The chat's all private just to me, by the way. So in your life, what are the things or the places that create that instant yes trigger for you? Like, is it at work where you want to impress or you want to feel helpful? Where is it that you feel the desire to please other people, or where you feel the most desire for connection? So I would say my instant yes happens to be with family. For me, that's probably one of the most unstable relationships in my life. And so I find that it's difficult for me to say no to family members. It's like I'm always trying to stay connected because those connections aren't very healthy. So that's something that I've really had to learn to stop grasping for and stop clinging for or clinging to, because it wasn't feeding my heart and soul. I was saying a lot of yeses just to feel needed or helpful or to feel connected, but it wasn't really connecting me. And at the same time, I wasn't taking very good care of myself because of it. So I've had to learn to look for those instant yes situations, learn where it is that I struggle the most with saying no, so that I can be hyper aware during those times. And that's kind of the trick with saying no. It's about giving yourself time for awareness so that you don't work on those automatically trained reactions, that we stop and we listen to that gut that's telling us, hey, wait a minute, even though our brain hasn't caught up and given us the right words. So I want to give you guys some reasons, I guess, of why we need to stop saying yes. And you probably already know some of these. You probably have some very specific ones in your life. But I put together a little list of them too. So the main thing for me as I, I'm a follower of Brene Brown, and I really enjoy living wholeheartedly and living authentically. I want to make sure that I live an authentic life. And so, sorry, I got distracted by the chat. Okay, there's a good question there I'll make sure to address. So I want to live authentically. And I think that when I say yes instead of saying no, that I'm not living my life fully. I'm not being who I really am. I'm being who other people want me to be. And so that's not good for anybody. Well, maybe it's good for them. Like they want me to be a certain way. They'll be happy if I'm like that, but that's not good for me. And this is my life, my one and only life here, in my belief. And so I'm going to make the most of it. So we need to stop saying yes because it's not authentic. We also need to stop saying yes because it makes us resentful. I don't know about you guys, but there are times where I've said yes so much that I don't even want to be around those people anymore. Like these were friends of mine, but I'd say, yes, yes, I do whatever they needed me to do. And then I just would be angry at how much they take, and never give. Of course, I never ask for help either, but that's another workshop, isn't it? So I would get resentful. And that is not the place I want to live. That resentful is like the opposite of gratitude. And so that drags us down. And it doesn't do anything for us to be joyful, helpful, loving. It's focused really on what isn't happening for me according to my expectations, can lead to self-pity, which I'm not a fan of. So I don't want to be resentful. And I've noticed too that when I'm feeling like I said yes instead of no, I get whiny. I don't want to do this. Why do they make me do this? Or why do I always have to do this? Well, because I did it. I said it. And I said I would. And that was on me, not on them. So we want to make sure that we stop saying yes because it drains our energy. You guys already probably know that. You get so wiped out that you can't focus on the things that really deserve your attention, the things that are really in alignment. So the main thing that we do in order to stop saying yes is that saying yes when we mean no, because we still want to say yes in life, right? But we want to say yes to those things that we want to say yes to. And to know what those things are the things that are in alignment with our values. So the things that deserve having a really good understanding of our values really helps us say no when something doesn't match up with our values. I can give you an example. So I was recently asked to write for a magazine, and I got really excited, and I was gonna, I looked at what the magazine, it's an online magazine, I looked at everything that it included and all of the publishing requirements. I was just invited to do this. And so I took a look at everything, and then I started looking at the magazine. And while it would be a great opportunity and it could potentially be some publicity or this and that, plus it would just get me writing a little bit more, all these good things, the magazine itself doesn't quite align with my values. It's not quite the direction that I want to go. So it would be a little bit of a sidetrack. And I thought, this is an area where it's going to be hard for me to say no, because who would turn this down? Who wouldn't want to write for a magazine? But when I think about doing that, it's going to steal my time and energy from the other things that I really want to be doing, that I already know I should be doing to align with my purpose. And that would be a bit of a sidetrack. So at this point, I'm going to say no. I haven't said it yet. But I'm going to say no, and I'm going to say maybe next year. So this kind of leads me straight into I have 12 tips for you today on how to say no. And so I'll start with the good question that came up in the chat that distracted me earlier. It's, how do you deal with the backlash of standing up for yourself and saying no? That's a good one. There are a lot of different ways to say no. So I'm going to go through these 12 tips, and I think that as we talk about them, we will see how we can prevent that backlash. And you know, when I talked earlier about manipulative relationships, there will be some backlash. If you have been saying yes, even when people have the best of intentions, it doesn't have to be something dark. But in a relationship, if you've been behaving a certain way for an extended period of time, and then you start standing up for yourself, it's going to be awkward. Point blank. We're going to do it in an awkward way. We're going to do it sometimes a little too aggressively. And plus, it's just different. So people don't like it. They like how flexible you've been in the past, how helpful you've been in the past. And so I think as we start practicing saying no, there are a couple of things we can do to prevent that backlash. And I think the first thing is to actually tell people, I'm practicing setting boundaries. I'm practicing saying no in my life because I say yes too much. And so I really have to say no to this in order to take care of myself. Another thing we can do is really be conscientious of being kind. And then if saying no comes out aggressively or awkwardly, then we apologize for it. It's really as simple as that. But I think sometimes relationships, especially with family that are really long-standing and we have old patterns of behavior, those can be really tricky to try to reshape. And so for me, it's just about being obvious and saying, this is what I'm doing in my life now. And knowing that it might be awkward and knowing that some of my family won't really like it. And there is a consequence to that. And there is grief that goes with that. Because we're not going to be able to change other people's behavior or change other people's reaction, but we do have responsibility for our own, and we do want to make the most of this life. And so that's why we need to practice sometimes saying no when we really want to say no. So here's the 12 tips. The first one, I already mentioned this, be clear about what you want out of life. If you know what you want, then it makes it much easier to identify what things to say yes to and what things to say no to. So you'll know which ones are going to be draining. Number 2, you guys all said it at the beginning, 100% in that poll, that your gut tells you when you should be saying no. But so you need to trust your gut. Number 2, trust your gut. If it doesn't feel good in the back of your mind or in the pit of your stomach, trust that, even if you don't have the words to say it. If you know the feeling like this doesn't feel right, then go ahead and say no. It'll be okay. It will. Number 3, give yourself permission to say no. That's a big one. It's not selfish. We have to really train ourselves with that, don't we? To feel like, oh, I got to take care of myself, my own needs. It's not selfish. It's just like that, you know, that they tell you on the airplanes that you have to put your own oxygen mask on before you can help the people around you, including your children. If you're not wearing your oxygen mask, then you're not going to be able to help anybody else. So you've got to take care of you. You've got to protect your time and your resources. They're limited. We're not superwomen as much as we like to think we are. Number 4, this is a big one for me and one that I'm working on doing more of. Get back to them. So never answer right away. And this is the one I really should do with family sometimes too. When I get invited to go to some family function that I know is going to be a little difficult for me, I need to just say, you know what, let me get back to you. Let me check on that and let me get back to you. Let me think about that answer, because then maybe I'll be able to articulate it well. Number 5, be kind. This is a big part in saying no. We don't have to be rude. We don't have to be aggressive. We can be kind about it. So things may come out like, oh, hell no. No, we don't have to take it there. So that's part of the good thing about getting back to them, is that, oh, let me think of a better way to word that than hell no. All right, number 6, start your sentence with the word no. Have you ever thought of that? Like, no. The sooner you get that word out, the easier it is to stick with it. Because how many of you have said no, and then 2 minutes later you take it back? Oh, well, okay, I'll do that, right? We don't want to do that anymore. Number 7, there are no explanations needed when you say no. And this is a hard one for me. It's hard not to create the whole rational story as to why I can't go. Instead, I can really just say, no, thank you. Not this time. Number 8, say yes to the person, but no to the task. Have you guys ever heard of, oh, what's this? It's like an Oreo thing. They talk about it in old school management. And they say, when you have to correct someone's behavior, you could give a positive, and then you squeeze in the correction, and then you give another positive, right? A little Oreo, so that it doesn't feel so harsh. We can do the same thing when we're saying no. We can say something like, oh, thank you for thinking of me, but I'm sorry, no. I'm sure it's going to be a lovely event. So I've created a little sandwich to kind of comfort my no, squeeze it in there, but I still said no. And I can feel really good about it too. Number 9, how about seeking some compromises or some alternatives? Now, this is one of those things that probably would take some time to think about. Maybe you can think of another person that could help them, or maybe you could think of another day that would work better, or another situation. For example, a family gathering. Now, I don't want to be there when there's 60 people, but how about we get together after the holidays? An alternative, so that you get to see the family that's inviting you. Number 10. Oh, suggest somebody else. So that kind of goes with number 9. Somebody who might be a good fit to help them, if that's what the request is about. Number 11, script a few responses. And I actually today have a handout for you guys. Let's see if I can find that handout. So I have a handout that gives you a few scripted responses. So something like a pat answer that you constantly say, like, I'm sorry, I can't, or due to family responsibilities, I'm not going to be able to. I appreciate you thinking of me. I want to, but I'm unable to. So there's lots of different scripts that you can come up with. And in this handout, I have, there it is. All right, I have for you a little tip sheet of possible ways to say no. I also have for you a couple of questions and a little chart that I'll talk about here in a second. So when you click the download now link, it should open another window, and then you can kind of come back over here and save that to download it after the webinar. So number 12 is that we could make to help us say no, we can make this is my last one, I thought it was pretty good. We can make a flexible set of policies that help us say no to things. So what if you make kind of a family policy that there are no outings on Sunday afternoons, like that's family time. Then when people ask you, oh, can you do this on Sunday afternoon? Can you do that? Can you do this? Then you can say, no, that's not what we do. Or maybe Wednesday nights, or Tuesday nights, or pick a time. If it's really important to you to spend some time with your family, but you find that you guys are all pulled apart in extra directions because we have trouble saying no, then that's something you can do. You can set a flexible but firm policy that is a family policy, or just one for yourself, that maybe you will create some limits on different ways that you spend your time, or on different places that you go, or different things that you do. It's all about getting in touch with those things that we value and that we want to do in our lives. There's nothing wrong with saying yes if it's something we want to say yes to. The issue comes when we're saying yes with a begrudging heart. That's not where we want to be in life, and that doesn't serve us. So we want to make sure that we say no when we need to. And I have a big note here. This big note, I think it was big for me. So it says, stop trying to rescue people. It says, I wrote it. Stop trying to rescue people. Often they aren't even asking anything of us. They're just sharing. Oh, I've got this going on, this going on, this going on. Have you ever had a friend tell you that? I've got this, this, this. And you jump right in and you say, oh, well, I can help. Well, no one even asked you yet. So we want to be sure that we check ourselves when we're trying to fix things, or that we're trying to help too much. Sometimes, most times, we just need to listen. We just need to hear them out and say, oh yeah, you got a lot on your plate. And they'll go, yeah, I do. That's all they needed to hear. They didn't need someone to rescue them from their own experiences. Let them hold on to their stuff. So that was a quick 12 tips. So you guys are all experts now, right? And you're going to go out and say no to the first chance you get, right? Well, it's not a bad idea, actually, because we need to practice. This is not some skill that you can just go to a webinar, listen to a talking head, and then walk away knowing how to do it. You have to practice it. And so that's what the other part of my handout is. It's a little chart that helps you track the times that you say no, because we need to kind of keep in touch with ourselves and pat ourselves on the back when we've done a good job, when we stood up for ourselves, when we said no, when we felt no. And we can start small. You can start small and say, no, I don't want to supersize that. You could say, no, I'm not going to buy cookie dough or wrapping paper or whatever else shows up at your door. You could say no to somebody at a restaurant. No, this food is not acceptable. And then maybe leave. I don't know what they'll do to your food. But you could say no in lots of little ways. And that's how we practice. That's how we build the skill. It doesn't happen magically. And those areas where we struggle the most, those are the ones that are the most difficult to conquer. So start small. Start at the base of the mountain and keep moving up. And you will be able to get there. You will. One of the things I wanted to make sure is that you, while you're learning this, that you extend yourself grace. This is something I think we struggle with. Like when I don't say no, or when I do it awkwardly or aggressively, then I totally start beating myself up. And that's not helpful. I need to be graceful with myself, just like I would be graceful with a friend. And I would say, ooh, that was harsh. Can we try that again? and just move forward from there. So I want you guys to be able to be kind to yourselves as you practice saying no. I hope you find these tips really helpful, and I hope you find a great way to practice. We need to have at least a buddy, I would say, to practice saying no, because we got to try in a safe place, right? And so, I wanted to let you guys know that I will be doing a new workshop in July that is kind of one of those safe places for practicing saying no. I'm doing a workshop in July on setting boundaries while still being nice. So that's kind of the crux of this, isn't it? That we still want to be nice, and yet we still say no. So in this workshop, we're going to practice setting all kinds of boundaries in our lives. And then with saying no, with physical space if we need to, with emotional boundaries, with rescuing and codependency kind of behaviors. So all kinds of stuff in this workshop. But really it's about setting boundaries while being nice, while still being nice. So if you need a safe place to practice saying no, I hope you consider joining us in this workshop. I will probably be able to redirect you to the website. No, because the software has changed. So it will be on, it's on worthandwisdom.com, my website, and you can get information about that workshop. It's a 21-day workshop. So anyway, you need to practice saying no. So if it's with the dog, if it's with the kids, we need to build up that skill of saying no. And we need to do that so that we can say no without feeling guilty. And that's another big part of this, that we need to stop feeling guilty for taking care of ourselves. Because each of you have worth, you have value, and your needs are just as important as anybody else's. And if you're not taking care of you, then you're not taking care of anybody else very well either. And when you have children, you have to think about what role modeling you're doing with your kids when you don't take care of yourself. What are you teaching your children about how to take care of themselves? We keep passing on that pattern through families. And so you're here because you want to stop it. And so now is the time to practice. So I hope you grab a buddy. You are able to use these handouts that I've created, including the chart. I would love to hear from you about how it goes. I'd love to hear your successes at saying no. And because we can't do this alone, it doesn't work that way. We need to figure out. Somebody wrote, no means no, because it does, right? And we have to believe that in our hearts too, and that's okay. That it's okay for us to say no. Give ourselves that permission. So I want to thank you, ladies, for being here with me. I have about 1 minute left because I promised to keep it at 40 minutes, and I'm a good teacher like that. So if I didn't get to your chat, I would love to have email conversations with you. Feel free to email me anytime. Visit me on my website, worthandwisdom.com, or on Facebook at Know My Worth or 3-Word Wisdom. Thanks for joining me today. Bye.